They say the third time's a charm. I tried this twice, didn't work. Let's see if it works this time. This is Elder Adrian Heyman, and I was looking at earlier in the day the press conference. It was involving our president and our Secretary of Defense, and they said some pretty interesting things. It was mainly centered around the photo or the video that showed that when the U.S. Navy blew one of the boats out of the water, didn't quite blow them out the water, but caused a fire and whatever. And the controversy came when it seemed to be two people that were left, and they maybe were hanging on the side of the boat or whatever it was, but they were clearly alive. And then another hit destroyed the boat, the people, everything else. And while that is questionable in a way that deals with regarding conduct during war, as it seems as if we've declared war on what they call narco-terrorists, I was a bit more concerned at numbers. You have to see, I am a numbers guy. I've been a numbers guy since I graduated from UCLA, way in 1980. I was 1886. I'm not that old, Lord help me. 1986. And the idea was essentially to match dollar amounts to various departments within the university, schools, departments, and so on. And this was to make sure that they remain solvent. Because even though the chancellor may have had some money to give, it wasn't a blank check. And so if schools were consistently running in the hole, we have to find out, why are they doing this? What is it structural wise that they were running into? And so the dollar amounts begin to tell a story, whether they're doing well, whether they're not doing so well. And then you have to figure out, is this really a revenue generating unit that, like, say, business and other schools that have pretty thriving graduate degree programs? Or is this one that is usually supported by the state because it's a liberal art, like humanities or fine arts and so on? But you can always count on the numbers, because the numbers, compared from year to year, the parameters wouldn't change very much, so you can do the comparison from year to year. In other words, the numbers told the truth. Of course, depending upon the underlying story that's with it. Now, there was a number that was thrown out once again about 20 million illegal aliens. And that does sound like a lot of illegal aliens, because that would be, doing very quick calculation, that would be somewhat like over 5% of the whole national population. If the population of the United States is 340 million, I think it's somewhere around there. Now, if 20 million immigrants are in the United States, and they're in the United States without going through the proper channels, then for many people that does constitute a problem. And to be honest, maybe it's our system of not being able to vet these people, not being able to count these people, not being able to see where they are. But the issue I have the main issue I have is that the 20 million has to be attached to something. And you can't pick and choose what the 20 million happens to be. Neither can you just draw a number out of the hat and say this is what it is. And the reason why I say that is because if you take 20 million illegal immigrants, did they all come at one time? Did they come during a period of time? Or is this the number of illegal immigrants in the United States? See how different things are? If they came at one time, that's a huge wave of illegal immigrants. And you must say, yes, the border is definitely not working at all. Because they all came at one time, like en masse. If you say that it came within a 4-year period, there's still a lot. But it's a bit more feasible for them to come all than for them to come all at once. It's a bit more feasible. And you have to remember we keep thinking about the southern border, but it's just not the southern border. It's people have overstayed their visas and so on, and they've come by plane on a legal basis, but they turn illegal when their visas expire. So you got to think about that as well. How many are coming over through Canada? And how many also have had their visas taken away from them? Not for any acts of violence or criminal activity, but because of the politics of the matter. See, all this goes into the picture of what does the 20 million consist of. But then it becomes even more feasible if the 20 million immigrants are what are in the United States as of right now. Means it could have come 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, being illegal. But they plied their trade, they go find a job somewhere, and they stayed in this country. 20 million. Which means that they could have started from the Reagan years all the way up through today. So this is the accumulation of all of those illegal immigrants. Now you have to also remember too that some illegal immigrants during that time have become legal. So you have to also count that as well. Do you take them off the list? Or do you include them in your numbers? See, all these things play a part. And after you show the numbers, you have to say, okay, what does the number represent? What do they represent? Are they representing actual numbers? Are they representing a wish list? Are they representing what are they representing? The numbers. Then I began to look at fact checkers. And many people don't like them because they tend to dissuade who said a particular number. And to me, it's like you should want the truth, regardless of where it comes out. If it comes out via the president, wonderful. If it comes out via a fact checker, okay. Then your question is, why didn't the speaker then give the right information? Which then comes on the fourth thing about that 20 million. The fact checkers look and they say, it's not 20 million. Now you can continue to say 20 million. And it sounds bad, and it is bad, if it was 20 million. The number is closer to 11 million. And that is 11 million undocumented workers who at one time crossed the border. That number includes many of those who were deported back to their countries. Not only during the administration of this particular president, but of previous presidents, including one Barack Obama. 10 years ago and older than that. So now it becomes more and more feasible because you got all these things going on. And so taking that, let's say the 20 now is down to 11 million, may end up down to just 3 or 4 million. But in any case, yes, undocumented. But let's be represented by the correct numbers. Because when you do big numbers like that, and people like to see numbers because it seems as if it's true, it's numbers. You can't not hide from the truth. You can't hide from the numbers. In the same way that when Doge was working with trying to root out fraud, waste, and abuse, and that they would say, we saved $1 billion here and 4 billion here and another billion over there. And you found out it was much less than that. But people grabbed on the numbers like they were precious. They would never lie. The numbers would never lie. Numbers by themselves can't lie. They're amoral. They don't have any stock in the matter. They're just numbers. They represent something, which is the key. If they represent something they were supposed to represent, then you have something to work with. Us as financial analysts had to work with the budgets of the various schools. And if that number meant what it said, or meant what it was presented out to be, then we can work with the schools to help mitigate any factors that may affect their bottom line, including possibly even giving them some more funding that it can give them more time to have a more streamlined approach. But if it means something else, then somebody is wrong. And we have to find out what took place. If 20 million is not right, why are we saying 20 million? Shouldn't we get the right number? And the key is, numbers, like anything else, can be used to deceive, which again points to what can be used by the one we call the little horn, the one we call the Antichrist, the one we call the beast, who will use anything he can to lie and spin a tale. And we have to make sure that we don't fall prey to that. Because when we look at numbers, and you figure, you can't lie about numbers. Yes, you can lie with numbers, depending upon which number you use and how they're represented. As I said, the numbers themselves don't do anything, but it's how they're presented that can affect the whole demeanor of a nation. So do your research, saints of God. It's like we do research on the scripture. Someone should not be able to quote scripture and apply it to something else, which is what Satan did when he tempted Christ in the wilderness. He used the scripture in Psalms. How he will bear thee up and all that. You go ahead and cast it down. Show me that you're God. Show me that's who you say you are. The angels will bear you up. And that's exactly what was said in the book of Psalms. Yeah, there's a little difference because the New Testament is written in Greek, the Old Testament is written in Hebrew. Most of the people of the day of Christ either knew Aramaic or they knew Greek. People in the Old Testament spoke Hebrew. So it's a bit different, but the gist was there. He used scripture, but in the wrong way. But some people would have been caught with that. Oh, let me go prove something. No, you don't have to prove anything. The scripture is scripture, regardless what you may think about it. And the same thing can be said about, to a lesser extent, but sort of the same thing. Numbers are numbers. Numbers can be twisted. Numbers can be contorted. Numbers can be used to hide certain facts while exaggerating other types of facts. And I believe that numbers will be used in the arsenal of the great deceiver to help him get to his place as ruler of all that he surveys on earth. Be careful about the numbers. Check those figures. Make sure they coincide. Make sure they balance. That's what we had to do. We had to make sure and check our numbers to make sure there were no discrepancies. Do the same thing, saints of God, when you're presented with numbers. God bless you in Jesus' name.